wife with me.
Hello.
I got my glasses on because it's late and I got to go to sleep soon. But we got Joe Rogan finally receiving some pushback on the whole dystopian, we're all going to merge with AI and robotics and mind reading and blah, 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 all the stuff that he goes into. Finally, two gentlemen who are much smarter than he is decide to push back in the most gentle way possible, because it is an interview. They're trying to be cordial, but they do push back. And those gentlemen are Tristan Harris and Asa Raskin, son of Jeff Raskin, the 31st employee of Apple Computers. One of those guys.
Yeah.
He's one of those big ones. One of the ones that saw Steve Jobs' wrath. We're going to be playing that clip for you right now. And then after, we're going to be playing those two gentlemen giving a talk, just a quick part of their talk, because they reveal a very alarming stat when it comes to the people who are working on AI currently. Very, very alarming to me. Now, don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got Soul Not For Sale. We got Public Enemy #1. You know who that is. And we got the Great Resist. Do not join the Great Reset. Discount code IamCoachColin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name Colin. Let's get into the clip.
What do you think of that?
Unfortunately, I am of the opinion that we are a biological caterpillar that's creating the electronic butterfly. I think we're making a cocoon, and I think we don't know why we're doing it, and I think there's a lot of factors involved, and there's a lot. It plays on a lot of human reward systems, and I think it's based on a lot of the what allowed us to reach this point in history, to survive and to innovate and to constantly be moving towards greater technologies. I've always said that if you looked at the human race amorally, like if you were some outsider, some life form from somewhere else that said, okay, what is this novel species on this one planet, the third planet from the sun? What do they do? They make things, better things. That's all they do. They just constantly make better things. And if you go from the emergent flint technologies of the Stone Age people to AI, that's it's very clear that unless something happens, unless there's a natural disaster or something akin to that, we will consistently make new, better things. That includes technology that allows for artificial life. And it just makes sense that if you scale that out 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it's a superior life form. And I mean, I don't agree with Larry Page. I think that this whole idea, don't be a speciesist, is ridiculous. Of course, I'm pro-human. But what is life? We have this very egocentric version of what life is. It cells and it breathes oxygen, or unless it's a plant, and it replicates and it reproduces through natural methods. But why? Why? But just because that's how we do it? Like if you look at the infinite vast scape, the massive amount of space in the universe, and you imagine what the incredibly different possibilities there are when it comes to different types of biological life, and then also different technological capabilities that have emerged over evolution. It seems inevitable that the bottleneck, our bottleneck in terms of our ability to evolve, is clearly biologic. Evolution is a long, slow process from single-celled organisms to human beings. But if you could bypass that with technology, and you can create an artificial intelligence that literally has all of the knowledge of every single human that has ever existed and currently exists, and then you can have this thing have the ability to make a far greater version of technology, a far greater version of intelligence, you're making a god. Mm-hmm. And if it keeps going 1,000 years from now, 1,000,000 years from now, it can make universes. It has no boundaries in terms of its ability to travel and traverse immense distances through the universe. You're making something that is life. It just doesn't have cells. It's just doing something different. But it also doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have lust. It doesn't have greed. It doesn't have jealousy. It doesn't have all the things that seem to both fuck us up and also motivate us to achieve. There's something about the biological reward systems that are like deeply embedded into human beings that are causing us to do all these things, that are causing us to create war and have battles over resources and deceive people and use propaganda and push false narratives in order to be financially profitable. All these things are the blight of society. These are the number one problems that we are trying to mitigate on a daily basis. If this thing can bypass that and move us into some next stage of evolution, I think that's inevitable. I think that's what we do.
But are you okay if the lights of consciousness go off and it's just this machine that is just computing, sitting on a spaceship, running around the world, having sucked in everything? I mean, I ask this as an open question. Like, I actually think that you and I discussed this on our very first
I don't think I'm
conversation.
okay with it. I just don't think I have the ability to do anything about it. If
But
the sun
that's an
went
important thing, though.
supernova,
If we would prefer, the important thing is to recognize, do we want that?
No, we certainly don't
if
want
there's
that.
one difference between the feeling of inevitability or impossibility versus
Right.
first, do we want it? Because it's really important to separate those questions for a moment, just so we can get clear.
Right.
Do we as a species, do we want that?
certainly not. No.
I think that
But-
most
but-
reasonable people hearing our conversation today, unless there's some distortion and you just are part of a suicide cult and you don't care about any light of consciousness continuing,
Right.
I think most people would say, if we could choose, we would want to continue this experiment. And there are visions of humanity that is tool builders that keep going and build Star Trek-like civilizations where humanity continues to build technology, but not in a way that like extinguishes us. And I don't mean that in the sort of existential risk, AIs kill everybody in one go, Terminator, just like basically breaks the things that have made human civilization work to date, which is the current kind of trajectory. I don't think that's what people want. And again, we have visions of Star Trek that show that there can be a harmonious relationship. And I don't want to go too off course, but the reason that, in our work we use the phrase humane technology, Asa hasn't disclosed his biography, but Asa's father was Jeff Raskin, who invented the Macintosh project at Apple. He started the Macintosh project. Steve Jobs obviously took it over later. But do you want to say about where the phrase humane came from, like what the idea behind that is?
It was about how do you make technology fit humans, not force us to fit into the way technology works. It was, he defined humane as that which is considerate of human frailties and responsive to human needs. Actually, I sometimes think, we talk about this, that like the meta work that we are doing together as communicators is the new Macintosh project, because all of the problems we're facing, climate change to AI, are hyperobjects. They're too complex
They're
to
so
fit
big and complex.
into the human mind. And so our job is figuring out how to communicate in such a way that we can fit it enough into our minds that we can have levers to pull it on it. And I think that's the problem here is I agree that it can feel inevitable. But maybe that's because we're looking at the problem the wrong way, in the same way that it might have felt inevitable that every country on Earth would end up with nuclear weapons, and it would be inevitable that we'd end up using them against each other, and then it would be inevitable that we'd wipe ourselves out. But it wasn't. Or when I think about like the end of slavery in the UK, like I could tell you a game theory story, which is that the UK was at war with like Holland and Spain. Much of their economy was built on top of the engine of slavery.
Slavery's free labor, so the countries that have free labor outcompete the countries that have to pay for labor.
Exactly. And so obviously you're not, like the UK will never abolish like slavery because that puts them at a disadvantage to everyone that they're competing with. So game theory says they're not going to do it. But game theory is not destiny. There is still this thing which is like humans waking up, our fudge factor, to say we don't want that. I think it's sort of funny that we're all talking about like AI is AI conscious when it's not even clear that we as humanity are conscious. But is there a way, and this is the question, of showing, like, can we build a mirror for all of humanity so we can say like, oh, that's not what we want, and then we go a different way.
And just to close the slavery story out, in the book Bury the Janes by Autumn Hochschild, in the UK, the conclusion of that story is through the advocacy of a lot of people working extremely hard, communicating testimony, pamphlets, visualizing slave ships, all this horrible stuff. The UK consciously and voluntarily chose to, they sacrificed 2% of their GDP every year for 60 years to wean themselves off of slavery, and they didn't have a civil war to do that. All this is to say that if you asked if the arms race between like the UK's military and economic might against France's military and economic might, they could never make that choice. But there is a way that if we're conscious about the future that we want, we can say, well, how do we try to move towards that future? It might have looked like we were destined to have nuclear war or destined to have 40 countries with nukes. We did some very aggressive lockdowns. I know some people in defense who told me about this, but apparently General Electric and Westinghouse sacrificed tens of billions of dollars in not commercializing their nuclear technology that they would have made money from spreading to many more countries. And that also would have carried with it nuclear proliferation risk because there's more just nuclear terrorism and things like that could have come from it. And I want to caveat that for those listeners who are saying, and we also want to make sure we made some mistakes on nuclear in that we have not gotten the nuclear power plants that would be helping us with climate change right now. There's ways, though, of managing that in a middle ground where you can say, if there's something that's dangerous, we can forego tremendous profit to do a thing that we actually think is the right thing to do. And we did that and sacrificed tens of billions of dollars in the case of nuclear technology. So in this case, we have this perishable window of leverage where right now there's only basically three, you want to say it?
Yeah, three countries that build the tools that make chips, essentially.
The AI chips.
The AI chips, and that's like the U.S., Netherlands, and Japan. So if just those three countries coordinated, we could stop the flow of like the most advanced new chips going out into the market.
So if they went underwater and did the dolphin thing and communicated about which future we actually want, they're...
So that is what they had to say.
Interesting.
Just to touch on the very last thing they just said about the chips coming from certain countries and this and that, that alone makes it seem very stoppable.
Yeah.
Because if those countries decide, hey, we're only going to do this with people who are going to do certain things and going to do it a certain way, that could kind of help.
Yeah. But then the issue is like who decides?
The country that makes the chips.
Which is a lot of power.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a risk too.
So it's like, but it is possible, to say that it's just not doable or if it's inevitable when it's actually very stoppable.
It is. But like everything in this world is very stoppable.
Yeah.
As well.
That's
if people would agree on it.
Yeah.
But that's the same issue as here is that people aren't going to agree on what the proper sanctions are.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's, I guess. But it's like, it's just those three countries. So if all of a sudden they got on board with some kind of AI regulation, some kind of thing, then it would be a lot. I just think like that right there shows that there's an avenue. Like I can't work it out within like the few minutes that we speak, or half an hour, however long it is. But that right there seems like there is an avenue towards that mirror that he's talking about of, showing everybody, like, is this what you want,
Yeah.
Like, it seems like something can be done by someone much smarter than me. Like, these gentlemen have dedicated their lives to, like, a more humane tech. So I'm sure they could figure it out. I mean, there's a reason why they even know about that to begin with, right?
I found it interesting that Asa was speaking about what humane tech means and where that came from, and that they brought up that his dad started the Macintosh project.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading a little bit of the Macintosh project, his dad, Jeff...
Raskin.
Thank you, Jeff Raskin, was discussing how Macintosh was supposed to be like a very people-centric computer.
Really?
Like he even said he didn't want to have a mouse on the original ones because he didn't want anything to take his hands off the keyboard so that it would be like very effective use of both of his hands.
Oh, yeah?
So he was already thinking about things that were like very intuitive for people, which is what Apple does now the best.
Of course, yeah.
So it was really interesting to see that. So he was already thinking in terms of like laptops.
Yes.
And this was in like the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. There's a reason why Steve Jobs seemed so like ahead of everything. Like he had some incredible people around him. Yeah. It wasn't just him, It was crazy.
But he Jeff Raskin only did the Macintosh project for like a year before Steve Jobs took it over, of course.
Wow.
And they didn't acknowledge his contribution to being kind of the father of Macintosh until after he left the company.
Yeah.
And they sent him the millionth Macintosh produced.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, just a little tidbit that I saw.
Yeah, and that's him there on the screen, Mr. Raskin.
Yeah.
And I love that his son is stepping in like this.
And it's interesting with the similar philosophies just coming out in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. The way it needs to come out now, right? Because it's a different technology that they're facing.
Yeah.
The website that I'm on right now is their website. It is humanetech.com. I would suggest if you are someone who is looking at everything that's going on and thinking that, this isn't something that you want, I believe it was Tristan that posed the question, like, is this what we want? This is a site that will kind of help you with that. He has done a lot of talks. He's made a lot of documentaries, and they're just doing a lot of work towards that. So, You know, you don't have to sign up or anything. I did just because I want to see what they end up sending me. But, you know, it's just there as a place. There is a place that's trying to do things a little better.
Yeah.
So very interesting. But yeah, they did push back in a very gentle way, in a very intelligent way.
Yeah, because most times Joe says all those things like, oh, it's going to take over and blah, 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 and it's inevitable. And nobody ever says, well, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody ever questions him.
No one ever pushes back.
Yeah. But I guess that comes to like the caliber and the kind of history of the guest as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like these guys know so much about AI. Not everybody does.
Yeah, I was going to say like Shane Gillis, who's like a known comedian, he's not going to really push back on it.
No.
You know?
Well, like anytime somebody doesn't feel super confident in a topic, they're not going to correct another person who's very passionate.
Exactly. And the closest people that have come to pushing back were the gentleman from trigonometry. They're just both sitting there as he's like saying all this stuff. And he's like, I can't tell if you're joking. And they're kind of like, oh, what's
they're like,
going on?
what is he talking about?
Like, I'm very grateful to be here, but I don't like what you're saying. And this talk does not come up with Elon Musk. Because Elon Musk would be like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Hold on. What?
Hold on. What?
He'd be like, you have to come with me. I'm going to go to a place. You can be on my plane. You need a lecture today, sir.
A lecture.
He never says anything remotely close to this when Elon Musk is on.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. Not even a touch.
Yeah.
Not even doesn't bring up inevitability. Doesn't bring up any of that stuff when Elon Musk is on the podcast.
Do they talk a lot about AI in general?
Of course.
And then they just don't bring up
Elon Musk
the
was
risk.
on his way to a I think it was an AI. It was an AI convention.
Okay.
Where he was letting everybody know the risks and like wanting to.
Oh, so he was going to discuss it.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I find it weird that like all of the top guys are all aware of the risks, but they're still developing it.
Yep. Elon Musk has his own.
Yeah.
That he's developed.
That's what I mean.
Sam Altman is at the forefront of OpenAI, ChatGPT. Yeah, they're all.
And they're still going.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing. I mean, depending on how dystopian it gets, when you're a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, even when you're in Joe's position, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
You can probably do the Mark Zuckerberg thing, what he's doing right now, build a bunker underground in Hawaii. You can like do the things you need to do to like not have it affect you as much.
Yeah. Unless
it gets like real movie like and it's just like everybody's getting taken out. But these are the gentlemen that are like, I'm going to be fine. They're always talking about humanity. Like Elon Musk is like, he talks about humanity more than himself because he's like, I'm going to be fine. Like, I can build a thing and like go around the world a few times.
Yeah, true.
And just stay in the air. I can stay in the air for months.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like think about it. This is hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah, that's true.
He can like develop a thing that just stays in the air.
Well, yeah, he'll just launch himself into space for a while.
Yeah, and just watch.
Yeah.
So that's why they don't seem super concerned. And again, this is something that's happening to us. I've brought this up so many times, as much as Joe's brought this up. I make it a point almost to bring up these points every time he does, because I'm not going to touch 11 million people every episode like he does. But like you gotta counter that type of speech. That's the thing with speech, right? It's like I don't want him to not say it, but you have to counter speech. That's how freedom of speech works.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Another kind of interesting thing about Asa Raskin, now that you say freedom of speech, is that he's actually the one who coined the term freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach.
Yeah.
Which several people have used in order to censor online content.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's kind of I don't know. He's a complicated character.
Yeah. Well, definitely is probably, assuming California guy, born in California, probably left-leaning, probably, I don't want to say on the side of censorship, but probably okay with freedom of speech, but, there's that movement.
With limitations,
Some people are like freedom of speech, and some people are like freedom of speech, except for, and on this topic, online this, saying this,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Freedom of speech with the asterisks.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm just like assuming as a California kid, as a rich California kid.
Yeah.
I would assume who's in tech, Like,
Yeah,
it's all
true.
the markings of someone who would be kind of like that. But towards what was being said in the clip, well, I've already said this before. You know, I mentioned this just now. We don't make things. You know, it's a very few people. Like, I would love. I'm telling you guys, I'm on the Joe Rogan Experience. We talk about this. The first thing I'm going to say is, when's the last time you built something and made it better? When's the last time? How many people? I only know your brother. That's it. Your brother could be the only person that could go, yeah, I did.
But my dad.
Yesterday. Yeah, your dad. That's it. I don't know anybody else that's building things constantly to make them better
Yeah.
and looking at things and being like, how can I fix this? Hey, my buddy Mike. He'll do a thing here and there technology-wise. He's deep in the tech space. And he's climbing up the ranks. Mm-hmm. He's like a couple of people away from like meeting Elon Musk. Yeah, he's like really close. He's getting really close.
Yeah, that's true. He's met a bunch of people.
Yeah. But you know, it's not something that we do. We do as people. We walk. Like, that's what you can say people do. We walk, we move, we travel. That's something all people do.
Yeah.
But building technology is not something that we do. It's something that a few people do.
Yeah, that's true.
And they don't check on the rest of us when they do it.
Yeah, they don't ask for permission.
Yeah, no.
Because we don't know anything about it either.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So it's like, I don't know why he says that. I have no idea. And, you know, it almost makes me feel like someone's paying him. But who could be paying him? Only Elon would be paying him.
Yeah. And it's like his stance isn't really, it's not exactly positive either.
No.
So there's no point for somebody to pay him. It's not like he's like singing praises of AI.
Yeah, it's not positive, but the thing is, when you're in front of that many people, and again, this is something that he said to Eddie Bravo when Eddie Bravo was spreading conspiracies. When you're in front of that many people, you should be wary of what you're saying because you're influencing so many people.
Yeah.
There are people who are listening to you. There are some people who will embrace whatever is to come, however invasive it might be in regards to technology, because they heard someone say it. Mm-hmm. There are people who accept certain things because they heard it on the news, and they heard it on that channel, and they heard it on that channel, and so did their friends, and now their friends are saying it to them, and now they accept it as something that's normal.
Yeah, that's true.
And
it does normalize it.
Right? And that's something that he's doing. And he's done this multiple times within the past 3 months.
Yeah,
and I'm the only person that
like
knows.
that a lot.
I'm the only person that knows. And you, because you got to listen to me all the time. But he's doing it quite a bit. Quite a bit.
Yeah.
All under the nose of his friend Elon Musk. Because Elon would put a stop to it.
Yeah.
I should like send that clip to like Elon. Be like, why is
Yeah.
Joe saying this all the time?
Like add him on X or
Yeah.
something with all the clips.
I get
And be like,
blocked.
can you fix this for me? Thanks.
I get blocked by Joe Rogan. Oh, that break my heart. But he also said something about the egocentric, how we look at life. Mm-hmm. And I don't think in this context, this is egocentric. It's not a very egocentric thing that the way we're looking at life as it is now, and the way we're looking at AI coming and eliminating jobs and things of that nature. I don't think this is very egocentric. I think this is more a case of possible takeover, possible displacement of a lot of people.
Yeah.
The governments and tech companies have no plan in place for all those people that lose jobs. They don't have any of this in mind as they're doing this. So I don't think this is egocentric. This is more, I want to say, for survival. Mm-hmm. In the worst case scenario, because of course there's such good things that AI could do and does and is currently doing. But
yeah, either way you could argue that it's egocentric though, because egocentric just means that we're caring about ourselves.
Yes. But he's saying egocentric like as in like, oh, we have such ego to think that this is not life. And it's like that's kind of not what people are thinking.
Yeah. I feel like it's almost more egotistical to believe that it is life,
And
because
that we can make it.
yes,
Yeah, true.
because then that is insinuating that like we are like gods.
Yes, true, very true. Like we just got to this stage, 2023. We are now gods.
Yeah.
Like our technology has increased this much that we can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It just and also he says it like, and I guess this kind of goes to what you're saying, because he's talking about how it's evolution, and it's not evolution. Like this is not evolution as you do this. as you do this with technology, this is not an evolution type of thing in regards to what we know it as. This is technology. When you compare it to cavemen and you compare it to the flint, as he brought up, and you compare it to fire, that wasn't really evolution. That was technology.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not because he also pairs this along with, ironing out emotions or editing out emotions as things go on. This thing will not have emotions. And with that, it will be better than us. Like, that's not quite how evolution should go. That's more like speaking of AI, that's more of an artificial evolution, if anything. Right? It's like, you should learn how to go to sleep. You should be able to put yourself in that state, meditation. You should be able to put yourself in that state. You should learn how to do it. You should learn how to breathe. You should learn to put these on, or just, be in more darkness as time goes on. But if you just take like a shot of melatonin straight into your bloodstream, you've kind of created that state. If you take some kind of substance to get into the meditative state, you've created that state. You're not really there yet.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. And then I just wrote "not a god" because it's like we're creating a god. And it's like that's very artificial.
Yeah.
It's very odd to think of it that way. But again, I should have wrote more about what these gentlemen were saying, because that was the thing that stood out to me the most, like what they had to say about it. Tech that fits us and not vice versa. That's what Asa was saying.
Yeah.
And
Which makes sense, like, given, like I said, his family history. And he was also working on a project that was a lot about like people-centric programming.
Yes.
And I was very confused because the way it was being described was so foreign to me that I couldn't even picture it.
Why?
The project he was working on, because it was saying like they were going to remove like windows that pop up on the computer for different programs.
You were reading this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, even from that, I didn't understand how it would work. So,
They're talking about removing windows that would pop up.
Yeah. Like, how we have like a window open for a browser and for
this,
email and
for
whatever
everything.
else.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have that.
Okay.
And I just can't wrap my head around how that would even work. So he's like deep diving into a lot of different things.
I wonder how that would work. That's interesting.
And he said it would also be like accessible for people with disabilities without changes and whatever else. So I was like, interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But this is the first time from anybody where I've heard them talk more about it fitting us. I mean, Elon Musk, who's so against it, has not talked about how it should fit for us. Like when he wanted to make his own ChatGPT, which he has, it's called Grok, I believe. He just talked about it being like anti-woke, but he didn't talk about it being more for us.
Yes.
He didn't talk about the evolutions of it benefiting us more than benefiting him or his companies or the AI itself, So this is the first time I've heard anybody kind of bring that up, which I like.
Yeah.
And the question that Tristan asked, like, is this something that we want? Like, nobody's asking that question.
Yeah.
Nobody is, especially the people who are working on it.
I want to say it's too bad that these guys aren't more involved in the production of it.
Yeah, like working in OpenAI.
Yeah, but I feel like no company would want them because they would put limits.
They would slow it down.
Yeah.
They would slow it down, and possibly they would be like, this, at this point, you should stop.
Yeah.
Like, this benefits humanity enough. How far are you looking to go?
Yeah. And
then within this conversation in this podcast, they talk a lot about how, other countries have this notion of beating China. Like, oh, we have to do this because we have to beat China, or we have to beat whoever else is going to do it. And they were just talking about how that's not true. That's not a real thing. And that the fact that everybody's doing it it's kind of like that thing where you feel like, what is that thing where you feel like someone else is going to do it, that you shift responsibility, like someone's screaming in the street.
Oh, yeah. Like the bystander effect kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So no one's really getting to that point, but everybody's racing towards it.
Yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
making it so everybody's going to get to that point.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. It's very weird. Very weird stuff. But what do you think about what they were saying and all of this?
Yeah, I don't know, like, I'm very kind of in the middle camp of AI,
Yeah.
like I am with most things. Like, I can
Yeah.
see that there is concern,
Of course, yeah.
but also that there's potential benefit.
Yeah, I mean,
But my biggest concern is that, like, capitalism is what's driving progress right now,
yeah.
which is the biggest danger.
Yeah, true.
If there was something else driving progress in terms of, like, honestly, if it was just straight up they wanted to advance technology
Yeah.
and nobody was making money off it, I think it would go a lot better.
Oh, of course. Well, because then if it's just advancing and nobody's making money from it, then it becomes a benefit for humanity.
Exactly.
It becomes a benefit
It's
for
just all
everybody.
about the motive.
And
And right now it's money and it's not good.
Yeah, and you wouldn't push it past a certain point, I think, if nobody was making any money from it.
Yeah,
You'd push it to the point of it benefiting everybody.
exactly. Because then at a certain point it would pass benefiting humanity.
Yeah.
And that's where you would stop.
Yeah, because why go any further?
Exactly. Because it wouldn't help anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I like how they brought up the inevitability and how they thought, like, at some point people thought it was inevitable that, like, slavery would go on forever,
Yeah.
you know, in certain places where it stopped. You know, of course, there's always that little caveat. It is going on in some places still, but it's very true. Like, at some point, somebody always thought it's inevitable. We're going to continue having slaves, and we're going to probably take over South America, and they're going to be our slaves as well. There's probably somebody who thought that.
Yeah. True.
And there was somebody else who was like, "No, man, why would you need that many?" He's like, I don't know. I have 1 million slaves. It seems like
Oh
it'd
my
be
gosh.
good.
This is my country of them.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody was like, "No, that's not gonna happen. You're probably not gonna have any soon. You're probably gonna have to pay people
Yeah.
the way that we're
Pay
getting
people
paid."
for work.
Yeah. And they're probably, you know, the way you're getting paid. It's probably going to be something like that. And, you know, it's going to be a business.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. I don't think it's inevitable that that AI becomes this god. I think it's only inevitable. I think everything that's going on with us right now, it's only inevitable if we allow it to be. I feel like you said something like that at the beginning, or maybe it was off camera. But I feel like it's only something like that if we allow it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to get to that point.
Well, you wanted to show that clip. I think they were talking about it.
Oh, yeah. This clip. Oh, man, if you watch to this point, you deserve to see this clip. Let's get into that real quick. So this is them talking about AI developers and how all of them, or most of them, feel things are going. Let's get into that.
That'll happen to your minds throughout this presentation, especially at the end when you go home. You'll be like, wait, what did we just see?
And I think because artificial intelligence is such an abstract thing, and it affects so many things, and it doesn't have the grounding metaphors, like the kinesthetic experience in our lives, that it's so hard to kind of wrap your head around how transformational this is. So when we call the presentation a paradigmatic response to a paradigmatic technology, what we really wanted to do is arm all of you with maybe a more visceral way of experiencing the exponential curves that we're about to be heading into.
Just to name a little bit of where the come from is, because we're going to say a lot of things about AI that are not going to be super positive. And yet, since 2017, I've been working on a thing called the Species Project, using AI to translate animal communication, decode non-human language. So there's a huge part of this stuff that I really love and believe in. A couple weeks ago, I made a Spanish tutor for myself with ChatGPT in like 15 minutes. So we're not saying, it's great, it's better than Duolingo, for like 45 minutes. So what we're not saying is that there aren't incredible positives that are coming out of this. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah, what we are saying is are the ways that we're now releasing these new large language model AIs into the public, are we doing that responsibly? And what we're hearing from people is that we're not doing responsibly. The feeling that I've had personally, just to share, is it's like it's 1944, and you get a call from Robert Oppenheimer inside this thing called the Manhattan Project. You have no idea what that is. And He says the world is about to change in a fundamental way, except the way it's about to change, it's not being deployed in a safe and responsible way. It's being deployed in a very dangerous way. And will you help from the outside? And when I say Oppenheimer, I mean more of a metaphor of a large number of people who are concerned about this, and some of them might be in this room, people who are in the industry, and we wanted to figure out what does responsibility look like. Now, why would we say that? Because this is a stat that took me by surprise. 50% of AI researchers believe there's a 10% or greater chance that humans go extinct from our inability to control AI. Say that one more time. Half of AI researchers believe there's a 10% or greater chance from humans' inability to control AI. That would be like if you're about to get on a plane and 50% of the engineers who make the plane say, well, if you get on this plane, there's a 10% chance that everybody goes down. Like, would you get on that plane? Right? But we are rapidly onboarding people onto this plane because of some of the dynamics that we're going to talk about, because sort of 3 rules of technology that we want to quickly go through with you that relate to what we're going to talk about.
So this talk is called The AI Dilemma. It was done on March 9th, 2023, and this is what they're basing most of the podcast on with Joe, and what they're basing most of their current work on, what they're trying to solve for people. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a crazy metaphor with the airplane.
Yeah, right? It's actually funny that you say that, because that's actually, there's a comedian that has a joke about that. He's talking about divorce, and then he's talking about how it's like 50%, and then he was just talking about how he's like, if you were like crossing the street and somebody was like, there's a 50% chance you're gonna get hit by a car, he's like, you'd probably just be like, nah, why risk it? Like, it was like this whole thing. I forget which comedian it was, but he's talking about that.
That's crazy.
But yeah, look at that. The people who are developing it actually have this in mind.
Yeah.
It's like they're drug addicts.
Yeah, true. They just can't stop.
Yeah. Like, what is that?
I don't know.
It's like, I kind of get it, because it's like, I need the money. I've always wanted to do this. This is the coolest thing to do right now. If I stop, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I want to know when it's all going to happen. That's probably a big thing too. Like,
and then I bet a lot of them too, like, think that if they're the ones developing it, then they can control it.
Oh yeah. It's communism. With communism, it always feels like anytime you hear about communism and you hear people like speaking on behalf of it, they'll point at all other like terrible examples of it and be like, that wasn't real. Like, if I had the power, it would go a lot better.
Yeah.
I would make sure it would. So, yeah, I think you're right about that. They just think they can do it better. And I will add with this whole thing, and probably by now I'm only just talking to you, but but Joe's pushing back on this the whole podcast, almost to the point of like the last minutes of it. He almost wants to be like, nah, well, I think you guys are wrong. Like, it's so weird the way he's pushing back the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
The entire time. With people who are clearly smarter than him.
Yeah, and just know way more about this too.
Way more. Do way more studying. Know so much more than he does.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how much more they know.
He just wants to stick to his theory that he has like, parroted for quite a few months.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. Not even months. It's been a while. It's been probably a year, maybe more, since he's been talking about stuff like this. Yeah, so he just pushes back the whole time. And it's like when he had all those controversial doctors on, because I want to say like, oh, well, that's what you want to do. You kind of want to steel man the conversation. But when he had Robert F. Kennedy on, there was no pushing back on that. When he had these controversial doctors on that everybody, like all the mainstream media were attacking him about, there's no steel manning and pushing back on those people. Like, there's been so many other topics that are in the same range of importance or not even as important that he doesn't push back on at all.
Yeah.
And with this, it's like, it's just a constant pushback. And in my opinion, not in a constructive way.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not very constructive, like what he's doing.
Yeah, because he doesn't really have enough knowledge to add to the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be constructive.
True. That is true. Which kind of makes you have to kind of stay on what you know and keep saying the things that you just feel.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can have opinions, sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you get in a room with those guys and they start talking about AI, it's more like asking questions so you can understand better.
That's yes. As an interviewer, that's what you would think. That's
Yeah.
exactly what you would think.
Yeah.
You'd be like, am I wrong about this?
Yeah.
And then
Like, tell me why I'm wrong about this.
Yeah, and ask that. Is there a better way than what I've been thinking?
Yeah.
Because with Robert F. Kennedy, he's like, I gotta let the guy speak. And with all those controversial doctors, like, I gotta let him speak. And it's like the guys who want AI to not be the potential hazard that it could be becoming, those guys you can't just let speak. Those guys you have to push back on.
Well, they can't even let each other speak. So.
Yeah. Well, that's Tristan.
Yeah.
Tristan has this way of
It seems like he
interrupting.
just gets so excited.
Yeah. He's like, this is our chance.
Yeah.
He's like, we're here. We got him. But I do wish that they pushed back. And you're asking me about interviews and stuff. I want to interview these guys, at least one of them. That would be a goal. And an off topic would be like Dave Smith. I want to interview Dave Smith too, and Tucker.
You will.
Interview Tucker. But like these guys, definitely. Like if we can message these guys, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's try and do that because I wanna actually let them speak because I think that's interesting. And find out why they didn't push back harder on Joe. I don't know, man. Like maybe I'm someone who shouldn't have like super intelligence or super power. I guess I don't know because like I was saying before, I'm like Joe could be the guy who just tells this person off and calls these people out.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking with these guys, I'm like, if I was this smart, I'd be like, listen, buddy, I'm talking actually. Okay, you tell jokes. Okay, we'll have a joke segment coming up, and you can teach us about stand-up. I'm going to teach you about AI. That's how it works. Because Joe would be like, okay.
All right.
But again, I know how it is in an interview. You don't want tense.
Yeah.
You don't want like negative, tense energy. You kind of just want
For
it to
like
be
2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a good vibe.
3 hours of it just being like that. All right. Anyway, what else you got?
That's it.
That's it. All right, guys. Like, subscribe, and do not let AI take over your lives. And if you're close to Joe Rogan, tell him to stop it and push back. Push back against anybody who is saying it's inevitable for us to have to merge with this technology. That's inevitable. That it's going to surpass us. That it's like push back against those people if you feel to. Don't just stay silent. Don't just nod in agreement. It does not help. You need to push back. Push back. Anyways, I'm out.
Bye.